Welcome back to On the Floor with Dr. Terra DeFoe. I am your host, Dr. Terra DeFoe, and I want to say thank you for another opportunity to be with you. Today, I have another special guest that is going to give us so much great information, and it is none other than Nina Hicks. Nina, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Good evening to you, Dr. DeFoe, and to your guests.
Yes. You know, everything is pretty much virtual, and I kind of love doing this way, right?
Yes.
Right through traffic to get to a studio. You do everything out the comfort of your home or your office.
Absolutely. Sounds great. I'm enjoying it.
And so for those who may not know you, you are the Wayne County Director of CEO. What is CEO and who is the service population that you serve?
Okay, so CEO is abbreviation for the Center for Employment Opportunities. And so CEO is one of the largest employers of returning citizens nationally. And it really began as a demonstration project, part of the Vera Institute, but we became an independent 501c3 nonprofit back in about 1996, and we operate right now in about 30 cities across 11 states. But CEO opened its first Michigan office here in Detroit in 2018 with the support of the Green Light Fund. And so as part of that, the population that we serve certainly are returning citizens. And with that being said, those are individuals who are actively on parole, actively on probation, or may have some type of justice involvement. But because of the landscape of the city, of course, we are serving predominantly our African-American community. And so our census is made up of those individuals. We work primarily in Wayne County, more specifically in Detroit. However, just so that your guests know, we do have additional services that we provide outside of the city of Detroit in neighboring counties as well. Individuals just need to be able to get here and fully engage in our programming 5 days a week.
Yes. And for, you know, being able to service our returning citizens population is so important. One, they have the barrier of returning home, and then they have the barrier of returning home with no resources. And so, you know, some are able to go back home and a family is there with a computer and a transportation, but many come home with nothing, not even clothes or bus tickets. And so this is very important that your organization understands this population and understands their needs. What would you say are the top 3 barriers for returning citizens and turning back to place of employment?
So I think, you know, one of the things that CEO does is we provide immediate and comprehensive employment services for those individuals returning home from incarceration. And so, of course, that is one of the #1 barriers, right? So you're trying to find work. Like you said, you've been released, you have nothing. You're trying to find work in an era of mass incarceration. And so, you know, finding that work, because now you have a conviction profile that you also have to contend with that comes with the stigma, you know, it becomes a little bit more difficult and more challenging. It's not insurmountable, but, you know, it becomes a little bit more difficult because you're always having to answer, you know, were you convicted of a crime, right? And so that is #1. The second one is really finding reliable transportation. And so, you know, oftentimes, you know, those opportunities that are, you know, may pay a little bit more might be outside of the city, or, you know, it's not convenient for you to get on the bus at all times. And so you're using a lot of your funds that you are making through employment on using Uber or Lyft or some other type of, you know, ride sharing service. And so, you know, finding an reliable transportation, whether it is the bus or whether it's trying to get a vehicle, is also important to making sure that you can secure employment and keep that employment because you're able to show up there on time. And the last one, which is huge, is housing. And so again, you know, people are coming home, the family unit may not be intact as it was when they left. And so, you know, they're trying to find independent housing for themselves, just as part of some of those basic needs that you and I are very, very comfortable with. And we have access to those things all the time. But for someone returning home, those 3 things are some of the top barriers that prevent them from accessing employment immediately.
who are some of your partners on the employment side?
So some of our local partners on the employment side range from both private sector and public sector employers. And so we have, private sector employers like Henry Ford Hospital, Metropolitan Area Hospital Services. We work with kind of those, maybe not Fortune 500 companies, but certainly are employers in the community that are doing well and have opportunities to hire individuals. But we also work with government and municipalities. So one of our employers, happens to be the Detroit Land Bank Authority. And so they hire our individuals. We get individuals hired through the city of Detroit. So, we work both with public and private sector employers.
And how does your organization bridge the gap between the employee and the employer?
So we have a dedicated individual on our staff. We call that person our business account manager or our job developer, right? And his primary role is to contact and source opportunities for our participants who we have identified as being job start ready. And so after really extensive work with that participant, we approach employers that we know have inclusive hiring practices. So sometimes we know that in the community as second chance hiring practices. We source individuals or organizations or employers through cold calling just to find out, backgrounds. Are there any available positions? And then, when we do that, part of our pitch is just to share with those employers that, we are a no-fee based employment solution to help match qualified candidates with their openings. And so, yes, they may have a conviction profile, but what we do share with them is that, we're offering these individuals an opportunity to become, again, productive citizens. And so, we share a custom set of resumes with them that have demonstrated the skills or credentials that employer is looking for. And we just really talk about the extensive job readiness training, the career interests, and really the personality assessments of our participants to ensure that there's going to be a good cultural fit, right? When we find you an opportunity and we're able to match you with that employer. And so as we're talking to, as our business account manager is talking to employers in the community, one of the things we really use as a specific benefit for hiring a returning citizen is that, there are two incentives for employers, right? The first one is the federal fidelity bonding. So that provides a no-fee fidelity bond for a returning citizen, individuals that really kind of are hard to place. And that allows the employer to get up to a $25,000 bond on that person to protect the employer in case of any loss, money, or property due to some kind of employee dishonesty, right? And so it just really is a guarantee to the employer that the person hired will be an honest worker. And then the second benefit we offer is the work opportunity tax credit. And so that's a federal tax credit available to employers who hire individuals from certain target groups. And so one of those is individuals who are classified as, returning citizens, may have a felony, or even SNAP recipients. And so they can get up to $9,600 for each qualified new hire. And so, a lot of times that's very important particularly if you're a smaller employer and you're looking for some tax breaks or tax opportunities. That's a way to, one, hire a returning citizen and then benefit from hiring that person as well.
Can you go into the tax credit a little bit more? I know some people talk about it a lot, but they don't really understand what this tax credit really means. What does it mean to receive that tax credit, and what is the process for employers to go through it?
So the process for that is that you would have to apply through, the UIA or the talent organization, which is just a state. And so you would apply. There is a 2-page application or 2-page process that identifies that, yes, I know that I am hiring a person that is a returning citizen, because that's a box on there that you need to check and identify that you identify this person as a returning citizen. You file that with the state. And so they will then, go through, verify, because you have to give some other kind of demographic information about that individual. And once they verify that that individual is actually a returning citizen or meets one of those target groups that are identified to be able to be eligible for this, then they will send you a letter saying, yes, Nina Hicks is eligible for you to take this tax credit up to $9,600 for each qualified new hire. So it's a very simple process. And a lot of employers can do that in their pre-screening process if they have one in terms of onboarding. So you can get that information completed, or you can work with your professional tax person that assists you to help you fill that paperwork out.
And that's awesome, because a lot of business, most businesses know about the credit, but a lot of businesses don't, and they don't understand, what do I do? What paperwork do I have to fill out to get this credit? But yet, thank you for sharing, that information. I'm sure it's going to help a business out there that says, hey, I want to be able to do this, or may already have returning citizens working for them, and they just didn't know how to go about getting the credit. What would you say in the employment field? What do you see as an upscale in employment fields right now?
Well, one of the things our business account manager uses, who's our job developer, so you'll hear me use that term simultaneously, is we look at what is called the Michigan Occupational Employment Outlook, or Michigan Occupational Employment Forecast, all the way through 2028, right? And so it lists the top 50 occupations that are in need of individuals in those fields and in those industries. And so, following those career pathways. And so that's one of the things that we do here, is we try to work with employers within those 6 career pathways. So that's going to be arts and communication, business management, engineering, manufacturing, and industrial technology, health sciences, human services, and then like natural resources and agriculture. And so within each one of those 6 pathways, there is a plethora of, employment opportunities, right? And so as we are looking for employers to match with our candidates, we really try to work within those 6 career pathways to identify those fields where there's a high need, will have high wages, are in high demand, and there's a high need for employment. And so one of the fields is construction. So while that's seasonal, it is also one of the most just as involved areas that's really friendly in terms of hiring individuals returning home from incarceration. So construction is really high in that area. All of the health science areas are high demand. And so let's see what else we have. We do have areas in business and manufacturing, although, a lot of those positions become entry-level positions. And so what I'm always looking for my business account manager is to find mid-level and opportunities. So those things beyond just working on the production assembly line.
That's awesome. Now, what is a typical intake process for a returning citizen? Does it become a time where they get a little frustrated? What is that process like?
Okay, so for us, right, we work, our program has a 4-phase model, so to speak. And so when someone is identified for our program, and generally that comes through a referral from the Michigan Department of Corrections, and so MDOC. And so what happens is we receive that referral to our program. We reach out, we talk to that person, we invite them to our phase 1 of our program, which is called A Pathway to Employment. And so in that class, we really work with them on just some interactive sessions on resume creation, job application completion, talking about some cognitive behavior interventions, because sometimes when we come home from being incarcerated, we're home, we're free, but we're not free. And so we just need to work sometimes through some of those feelings and and emotions so that we're ready when we move into, back into the world of work. And so we really even talk about answering some of those interview questions very specifically. How do you deal with answering your conviction statement without revealing so much that you blow someone back out of the chair, right? And so that first part of that is we assist participants with assembling all of their necessary documents to become I-9 compliant. And so, we found in our work that when people come home, because the family structure may have shifted a little bit, they may come home, they don't have their driver's license or state ID, they don't know where their vital documents such as Social Security card and birth certificate are. And so all of those things are necessary before you can even really enter back into the workforce, because you have to show that you're eligible as a United States citizen to work, right? And so when they come home, those are some of the barriers that we have to work through with them to get them ready to enter into the workforce. But one of the good things about our organization is, as we're working with you through that Pathways to Employment orientation, immediately after that, if you don't work anywhere else, we hire you as a person to work with us in our organization. So you become an immediate employee. So right after P2E class, you begin to work for the Center for Employment Opportunities. And so what that does for a person is two things really. One, it gives you an immediate reference, because we're going to help you develop your resume. If you don't have references or someone who can vouch for you, now you will have someone who vouched for you, because you're to be working for us in a crew-based services opportunity. Yeah, so we hire them, they do daily work for us, and you also get paid at the end of the day, on your NetSpend card. So you have some funds in your pocket each day that you work for us. And so we hire individuals up to 75 days before they're placed in what we call unsubsidized employment, which simply means, in layman's terms, until they find full-time work. And so, but simultaneously, they're going to be working with our job coach and our job developer to become what we call Job Start Ready, right? And so as we work through those barriers, we're going to also be running you through mock interviews, assisting you with creating that resume, giving you some guidance in the job search, like I said, matching you with a qualified employer depending on what your career pathway is. And then after all of that, once we get you matched in full-time sustainable employment, we still follow you for 1 full year in placement. And so if something happens in that retention phase of our program, so say, you have conflict at work. So we provide, our staff provides workplace counseling with you and the employer. If you find it's not a good cultural fit, we do some crisis management, and we extend those services both to the employer and to the employee, because sometimes people get laid off. And so, instead of starting from scratch, they just come back to us and say, hey, I got laid off. Do you guys have any other opportunities that I can seek out? And we assist them with that, because, the data shows that if a person can remain fully employed for up to 1 year, the likelihood of recidivism is reduced significantly. And so, that's one of our program outcome goals. And so that's what we're working towards, with individuals in our program on a daily basis.
Wow. That is, what, this is totally what is needed in our community, because again, we don't want individuals returning, and we want to make sure that we remove the barriers that are going to come up, but how do we remove them and how do we help them work around them? Want to talk about, as an individual, and I'm returning home, I am probably processing out of Jackson to come back home. I'm taking that long ride down 94, probably noticing some things that wasn't there when I went in. Life has totally changed, right? And now I'm back in the city of Detroit or wherever I may be. And what do I do? How do I prepare myself for employment?
Well, I think one of the things that prior to release inside of the correctional facilities are some structured reentry programs, right? And so, working with your counselor on the inside to just identify some of those things that you're interested in, possibly get a resume created while you're inside. But definitely when you come out, if you're on active parole or probation, have that conversation with that parole or probation professional. And so, because people sometimes tend to make those relationships adversarial, but it really should be a collaborative relationship, because that parole or probation professional has access to community resources. They may know, what programs that you might be well suited for or find a good match for you, and then refer you to those programs. And so, as you're coming out, you want to think about, what tangible hard skills do I have? And we share this with our participants all the time. I don't care if you were a porter, I don't care if you were a cook. There are some tangible hard skills that you learned or you gained while you were incarcerated, right? And so the other piece is making sure you're developing those soft skills. You can do an interview to get a job, but you also have to have those skills to be able to keep the job. And so, preparing that professional resume, just finding individuals who will be references for you, who's going to vouch for you. You've been away for a significant amount of time, who in your family, who in your circle might be someone who can say, this person's here, they're doing a great job in their reentry, they're interested in us, we're here to support them. Practicing interview skills, specifically now, the STAR method is one of those high interview type techniques that a lot of companies are using, because they want to know, not that you can answer the question yes or no, but how are you going to behave in that role on my job site, on my work site, right?
Right.
And just engaging in, consistent and structured job searching activities. If you aren't connected with an organization, there are several reentries, not just the Center for Employment Opportunity. There are several reentry programs throughout the city, but connect to one of them, because those professionals within those organizations also are connected to other resources that can help you remove some of those barriers as you're looking for employment.
Wow, that is so awesome. Now, how can a person get in touch with your organization?
They can give our office a call. Our number is 313-752-0680. That's 313-752-0680. They can check out our website at ceoworks.org. That's ceoworks.org. Or they can also, and I'll share my my office number here, which is 313-398-2417. So one of those ways they can just look us up. We have a website for CEO Detroit as well.
All right. Well, Nina, I want to say thank you for coming to the show. This has been Nina Hicks, Wayne County Director of CEO. Again, thank you for coming on the show and sharing this information. I'm sure you're going to get some calls, because people are looking for employment and great employment opportunities.
Yes.
I am your host, Dr. Terra DeFoe, and you have been watching On the Floor. Until next time, see you next week.
Growing up, I did a lot of crazy things. I would try to fit in. I'm sitting in prison and I'm like, man. When I get home, I can't live this life no more, man. I can't go around robbing people no more.
So here's a young man exiting prison, feeling genuinely scared. Where do I go? Who do I talk to? I don't have a resume. It's pretty easy to say what CEO is. We do one thing with one group of people. We get jobs for people with criminal histories.
What CEO tries to do is work with those clients to get them back employed. They become tax-paying citizens, and there is a ripple effect when you help people get jobs.
The first step of CEO is life skills education. It's a one-week class in which we go over basic work behaviors that are going to ensure individuals' success in the private sector job market.
I want them to be self-sufficient, respectful, intelligent human beings, so therefore they represent themselves exceedingly well on an interview for a job.
The second step is transitional work. Within 1 week of coming to CEO, every participant is guaranteed a job working for CEO on one of our transitional job sites.
If you come to one of my work crews, you'll see guys working every day in all 5 boroughs, day and night, and it's real work that helps them find real jobs.
The third step is job coaching and job development. 1 day a week, they're meeting with a job coach, and those who are prepared are meeting with a job developer who are helping market them to full-time private sector employers. The fourth step of CEO is retention services. CEO has a dedicated team of retention specialists whose entire job is to help people keep their job and move up in the job market.
That same person now is interviewing for that same entry-level job, but guess what? He already has a job. He has a resume. He has a track record. Now, that playing field's just a little bit more level with everyone else.
CEO is in effect my work history. It makes my work life a lot easier. So it's a win-win all the way around. I get better employees, they get opportunity, everybody goes away happy.
Because either these folks are gonna wind up back in jail, or you and me, we're gonna be paying in our taxes to sustain them, so why not give people a chance?
To the people at CEO, I love them, because if it wasn't for them, I'll probably be back in prison right now. I've been on a job interview. He asked me, about myself, my life, work experience, conviction. And thanks to CEO, I was able to answer that question. And he was like, Scott, got the job.
CEO was founded in New York City, but we've proven effective in reducing recidivism, and we've proven effective in scaling our operation around the country. There's so much need for people coming home from prison who need jobs, and there's so much possibility for CEO to continue to grow.
We're one of the only organizations in the country to help folks at their most vulnerable time, but also at their most motivated time to change their thinking, to change their behaviors in ways that have a lasting impact on them, on their families, their communities, our families, and our communities. That's what CEO is all about.
More than 3,000 Michigan residents are waiting for the life-saving gift of organ donation. As your Secretary of State, I'm proud of our department's role with the Michigan Organ Donor Registry. Our collaboration with Gift of Life Michigan and Eversight Michigan continues to save countless lives across our state. Let's hear from a few people who can speak personally about this important topic.
About 2 years ago, the kids were all down fishing by the pond, which they often do. And Colton's brother had just bought a new fishing lure. That was one of the days that Jake and I decided we'd go watch them fish.
My brother took a cast and then it went straight back and went straight into my eye.
And we loaded him up in the car and rushed to the hospital. We went right into the ER and they realized that it had kind of tore through his whole cornea.
Once I woke up, I had this eye patch on and I couldn't open my eye.
And the next decision that we had to make was, doing a cornea transplant, which we had a lot of questions and reservations. You don't really realize till that very moment when an accident like that happens what that really means. So we're overly thankful and say our prayers every night.
I was diagnosed in utero at about 8 weeks with a heart disease, and they weren't sure how severe it would be, and I went in for my first open heart surgery. That was at about 17 hours old, and then I had my second surgery at a week old. I was pretty good till I was about 12, and then I wasn't able to do much, even just walking would really make me tired, or laying flat, just simple things. And so they scheduled the heart cath because they wanted to see if they could see anything, and they did. About a week later, I started gaining lots of water from my heart, and so they wanted me to come back into the hospital up at U of M. And they ended up realizing that I shouldn't go home. They came out and they talked to my family about needing to be listed for a heart transplant because there was nothing else that they could do, no medicines or anything could really fix how sick my heart truly was. I was listed in September and I got my heart in November, so about 3 months we waited. Just the little things that you never really notice, I'm able to walk without getting tired, and I'm just blessed and thankful for my organ donor and their family.
So when I was in high school, I was diagnosed with autoimmune hepatitis. My immune system caused cirrhosis, and I went into end-stage liver failure. I waited 2 years for a transplant. Things were starting to get bad and I didn't have a lot of time left. The doctors at Henry Ford, they reevaluated my case and they decided that I could have a living donor, that someone could give me a piece of their liver. So we scrambled to find a donor. My sisters who live in Utah, they both flew home, got all worked up, the test results, everything to see if they were a match. And my older sister wasn't a match, but my younger sister was. So we actually had a surgery date set. The doctors, they had told my mom that if I didn't get a transplant, they didn't think that I would make it to Christmas. We were praying for something to happen because we weren't sure if I would even make it to the surgery date. And we ended up getting a phone call from Henry Ford on November 1st, and they had a liver for me. Like, I'm here today because somebody made the decision to be a donor and it saved my life. I mean, I would have been dead at 29 and I wasn't ready.
What happened was I found out that I had an underlying kidney disease before I became pregnant. At 5 months, I went into premature labor. After the C-section, I knew something was wrong. I had severe pain in my back. The doctor, he opened the door and he says, "Miss Cook, you're in total kidney failure." After that, I told him, I said, "I have a baby in the NICU unit." I said, "I've got to live, I've got to survive." I was on dialysis approximately 3 years. After being on the wait list for a couple of years, I was called. I was told that it would be a 2-year-old baby's kidneys. I could not comprehend that as I lay there and watched my 2-year-old child sleep. All I could think about was another parent had lost their child. I just couldn't understand it until after a couple of calls. It's bittersweet, but it would save my life so that I could be a good mother and have longevity for my child as well.
Losing my mother at the age of 1 was already tragic enough, and then suddenly this happened. My son, Terra DeFoe, at the age of 24, went into 10-hour heart surgery, but then he started having complications. Throughout the whole chaotic process of just being in the hospital, trying to understand what's happening. He's up and down, and here comes a representative from Gift of Life. And I'm like, oh, I know what this means. And, even though I'm processing it, I'm not processing it. One thing I didn't want to do was, create a nonprofit in my son's name and, had his foundation. And then 6 months later, I done forgot about it. So the Gift of Life program is one thing that I've been given to continue to share his story and know that my son is still winning. I know that my son lives on in somebody else. I know that my son changed the quality of life for somebody else.
At Gift of Life, we work very hard to make sure every precious opportunity for donation is exhausted. We do that by fulfilling the wishes of generous donors and their families who really want to turn their tragedies into hope and new life for others. Make sure you talk with your family about your decision, and please help us raise awareness about the importance of donation in your social media network. What an awesome legacy you would leave.
At Eversight, we work to provide the gift of sight and hope to thousands of people every year facing a lifetime of blindness or poor vision. People like Colton.
As you can see from these stories, showing just a few of the many people who have been touched by this issue in Michigan, there is an urgent need for organ donation. By signing up as an organ donor, you can donate up to 8 life-saving organs, plus tissues that can improve the lives of up to 75 others. Please consider signing up today online at michigan.gov/organ donation or giftoflifemichigan.org. Thank you.